Hello, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, everyone in between. Welcome to episode number 32. Is it 32, really, of Titanic Talks? 32 episodes. That means 33 is next week. And that is a very special number to me. One of my lucky numbers. Hope everyone's doing well. It is Friday, September 8th, and I am heading to the airport immediately after this to go to Nashville, Tennessee. Looking forward to having a good time out there. If you're in Nashville, hey, maybe you'll run into me at a honky-tonk on Broadway. Maybe not. That's kind of one of those things, you know. It's fun to do once. If you're not familiar, if you've never been to Nashville, there's a kind of a main drag there. And there are lots of honky-tonks and a lot of live music. Maybe too much. And I really enjoy Nashville. That's where I've always had a really fun time performing music. Maybe I'll get on stage this weekend, sit in and tear it up. You know how your boy does it. A little bit of country music shredding. Going to be there to start promotional materials for Caleb Lee Hutchinson's new album, which is done. It is done, and one of my favorite things that I've ever produced. I think it's a really, really interesting and dare I say cutting edge, coming from a relatively country realm. I don't really know what I would call it as far as genre. And that's kind of been my thing throughout my career, where it's genre blending, I suppose. But I'm very excited about it. I think in a couple weeks here, we're putting out the first single. I don't know if they've announced anything. I have to look before I can really start diving into the nitty gritty. But it's a good time. Caleb's the best, and we're talking about maybe playing some shows together. I know he's going to be touring like crazy to promote the album, and I played a lot on it, so it might be cool to join in some shows. Maybe we'll do some Tennessee and Texas shows together and get some of y'all out there if you'd like to come and do a little boot scooting, because we've got some, as Caleb would call them, barn burners. Really fun stuff. We referenced, so many different things. It's like, it's the thing I always talk about, which is, taking a million different influences, seeing if they can work together, getting them to work together. And this was a really cool one because, previous records that I've either written or produced, I never really, I guess at the time, I never had the appreciation for the very broad term of country music. And I understand a lot. I used to be one of those dudes. I was one of those. I like everything but country. And then I heard Townes Van Zandt and John Prine, Waylon Jennings. You go back further and further. Ultimately, you get to Hank Williams. And I think that Lovesick Blues may be my favorite song of all time. Tied with God Only Knows is always up there. But there's something about Lovesick Blues that I really like, which I believe is one of those songs that there's hundreds of different iterations. Who knows who actually wrote it? The jury's kind of out on that, but popularized by Hank Williams, and I would say probably the best version. It's hilarious that the what was that kid's name? The Walmart singer kid, was it Ramsey something? Mason Ramsey, Walmart yodeling kid. I feel like he actually put a song out relatively recently that was really good, if I remember correctly. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, or no idea who Hank Williams is somehow, you probably have seen the Walmart yodeling kid. He was singing very famously Lovesick Blues, as popularized by the one and only Hank Williams. There's a really great movie, actually, about the life of Hank Williams, and I really enjoyed it. It's called I Saw the Light, and Tom Hiddleston plays Hank Williams. Really good stuff. I was recently in I get it. I get why people can't really get into it. There's all kind of like the bro country stuff. And right now, kind of what's becoming popular, I guess, was Luke Combs. He's very popular recently. Who was the guy who just got arrested? Someone's always getting arrested. Zach Bryan. Didn't he have like a number one album? I think he charted number one this week. Pretty crazy. Yeah, number one album and songs with self-titled release as of 2 days ago. Good for him. Pretty wild. But there's an interesting moment going on. A couple people, Charlie Crockett's a great example. Sierra. There's some interesting kind of throwback stuff going on, which I think is a bit of a delineation from maybe, I don't know, the past country with trap beats, right? Which was inevitable. They're going to try everything. I am not a fan of that. So if you're out there watching and you're like, I'm not going to listen to a country album, even if my main man, Titanic, Sinclair, produced it, I would say just no. We were really referencing kind of more of like the outlaw, I guess, as they say, Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings. There's a lot of I'm a really big Townes Van Zandt fan. So if you're into kind of any of that stuff, but there's, how I do it. I like groovy songs, so throwing a lot of groove in there. And I referenced a lot of. I'm sure I'll probably do an episode here with Caleb, and we'll talk about the album once it's out. It's kind of the references that went into that. Very, very serendipitous recording, which we did in, I think, 9 days, 12 songs. And, it's just one of those things. We started sending songs back and forth and FaceTiming and all that jazz. And it's kind of, we were just, let's do it. Come on down to Texas. And that's what we did. And I truly could not be more proud of him and more excited about what we were able to make together. So coming soon, I want to say later this month, they're talking about the first single, which is one of the ones I'm the most excited about. Not to say that I can't predict the future, but I can feel when a song's got the zhuzh. Little extra mojo. And it sounds like the first one that they're going to put out has a significant amount of mojo. Hopefully everyone had a good week. It was another crazy one. Looks like we have Olivia Rodrigo's new album. I haven't listened to it. I'll listen to it on the airplane. But people are already sending me videos. There's one in particular where she's playing live and they're saying, I've had multiple friends at this point say that it reminds them of X. It just goes from really loud to really pretty and quiet. To which I say, maybe she's heard it. And if it was influential to Olivia and her production team, I say, cool. Because you know your boy's Team Olivia. I should probably know what do they call Olivia Rodrigo fans? What do you think? Her fans are apparently called Olivianators, Rodrigans, or Rodriganators. Nope, see, we're not going to do that. We're just going to say, I enjoy what I've heard from her so far, which is weird. Kind of seems like one of those wild cards. I would imagine whoever her collaborative partner is, I'd probably have a very interesting conversation with them, because it seems like what they're doing is quite transformative. You know, a lot of these, you know, it's a tricky thing, especially being in a position like mine. You know, you've got kind of like one half of the people understand like how it works. You know, it's like the great and powerful Oz is not great and powerful. It's usually a person or in the music business, a whole team of people who are working really, really hard to shine a spotlight on one person. And then there's, you know, the other half who, you know, think the Taylor Swifts of the world just are, you know, going into a studio and emerging with a fully completed album that they did all on their own, which, you know, hey, that's a cool thought. Not the way it works. And I don't think there's any right or wrong in thinking one way or the other, but there's the way it actually happens, and then the way, you know, the super stans, if you will, the way they want it to happen. And that's an interesting thing to see via proximity, kind of, you know, you see like the fandoms right now, the whole Joe Jonas fiasco is going on. He's unfortunately, he and his I guess going to be ex-wife are separating. And anytime I see anyone going through like a public thing, I feel bad for all parties involved at this point in my life. And being a father, I can only imagine how difficult that must be for both of them. I know it's not a spicy take there, but I'm the guy here who was, you know, a couple weeks ago, I guess, defending billionaires, saying they're people too. And, you know, it's like, did everyone forget about Princess Diana? It's funny how that happens, you know. People build up someone into celebrity, an idol, and worship it, and before you know it, they're just tearing it right down. And that's why I have an issue with idol worship. Well, many issues with it, but one of the main ones being they're just people. And it's a bummer when anyone's going through any sort of heartbreaking situation, whether they're famous or not. Anyway, taking it up a notch a little bit here. Wanted to take a moment to say, can we stop with the Wagyu beef? Please? Hey, guess what? That's not Wagyu. It's not. Now, of course, I'm gonna be that dude. Have I been to Kobe, Japan, where Kobe beef is the real deal Wagyu? Was it $400 for, I think, 6 ounces? Yeah. Was it the best thing I've ever experienced in my life? Yeah. When people say, hey, what's your death row meal? Kobe beef from Kobe. Wagyu steak. It was the best thing I've ever had in my entire life. And it was one of those situations where it's like, well, when's the next time I'm going to be in Kobe, Japan? I just happened to be playing a music festival there, and you know your main man and his homeboys balled out of control. Let's just call it what it is, right? So I remember maybe a couple of years ago, maybe like 2 years ago, this started. And it's like Wendy's new Wagyu burger. And it's just like, no. So I watched this this whole documentary. Well, it was like a not a documentary, but a long YouTube video. I want to say it was from that Ethan Schlabowski. Yeah, this is the one I watched. Is Wagyu ground beef a scam? And it's 28 minutes long, which is why I call it a documentary. But you should definitely watch it. 1.7 million views in a month. And they really do a good job kind of explaining the situation. And that's why I like Ethan's videos, because he gets really deep into like the history and like the why into these like food conversations. I love cooking. It's one of my favorite things to do. I think I like it just as much as making music at this point in my life. And so you see, you know, it's one of those things you go through you go through life and you have your core like unbelievable food experiences. This is really what I live for. You know, you're in a place like I'm about to go to Nashville. You know I'm going to Prince's. Apparently, it's better than Hattie B's. And I believe I've talked about Hattie B's Nashville hot chicken sandwich. And it's the only time I've ever thrown up on stage and swallowed it. Sorry if you're eating. It's gross, I know. I can't remember what year this was. It was on the first song. I know I was playing bass at the time. So it must have been around the Am I a Girl tour. I think the first tour where we played as an actual band, drums, guitar, bass. Someone has to have footage of that. If anyone was at that show, all I know is it was Nashville around the time of Am I a Girl? But the first song, can't remember what we opened up with. But if you have footage of that, or if you can find footage of that, that you will see me throw up in my mouth and swallow it and continue the show. And what did I throw up? Hattie B's. I've got a pretty high spice tolerance. I've done the ghost pepper. I've done the Carolina Reaper. All that stuff. It's bad. The worst of all in my experience was at Jitlada. I don't know if that's still around, but Jitlada on Hollywood Boulevard in Hollywood. Well, technically Thai Town, but it's Hollywood. Just east of like downtown Hollywood. And I'm sure you can find on YouTube. I'm sure there's people who have done the Jitlada Ghost Pepper Challenge. I did that. And I am not kidding when I say I was hallucinating. It was that hot. I did 2 bites. And I'm the type of person who, I'll go for it. No, not this. It was not enjoyable whatsoever. It's like there's no way people actually eat that, right? But I like the spice, and so I remember being in Nashville, wanting Hattie B's. I want to say it was my buddy Justin. Yeah, he was on the road with us at that time. And he was, I think he was running our in-ear monitors and teching for us. So, road dog, great guy. And I told him, let's get Hattie B's. He's like, heck yeah. And so we sent a runner out. Great part about being on tour is sometimes, well, most of the time, people will just go get stuff for you. Depending on your level of, but we had a runner, and because there's typically a line at spots like that, and so we had someone go out and get it for us, and they're like, "What level do you want?" I was like, "Oh, I'll just get the hot." And I remember Justin said, "Get the medium." Like, hey man, and at this point I'd already done the gelada, ghost pepper. I'm like, there's no way this is gonna be. He's like, get the medium or mild. It's like, I guess I'm about to play a show. I usually don't eat a lot before performing. When you're kind of like hopping around, especially if you're, performing live, the last thing you want is to have a belly problem, right? And that's exactly what happened. First song in, uh-oh. Oh, and by the way, the medium was really spicy. Not terrible. I finished the whole thing. So if anyone out there is watching and is, it's actually the medium is not hot at all. It's like, Look, it's nowhere near like ghost pepper, nowhere near gelato. That was a whole different thing. At least with Hattie B's, you could finish it. Anyway, long-winded way. If you're from Nashville, maybe you would know better than I. I hear Prince's is the one to go to. So I think that's probably going to be my first stop. And there's, do you do this if you travel? There's like I'm going for business, but I don't think about that at all. Because I know, I pretty much know at this point in my career, I know what I'm doing, kind of. Or at least I know what I do that works. And then that's where the creative comes in. You're like, okay, well, how do we creatively apply the things that I've done a lot and have worked, to a new artist and make it fresh and new while also maintaining like the core skeleton of what tends to be what I would call my special sauce, right? And I remember being younger and going to, it's a big deal if you're a musician, you grow up wanting to hopefully find some success with your music. It's a big deal the first time you're at a major record label in New York City or in Los Angeles. Suddenly you're like, wow, I'm in Universal Music. I'm in Capitol Records. Like, this is wow. But then you fast forward. I mean, that was probably 2014, 2015, the first time I had that. Like, whoa, it's been almost 10 years. And so it just kind of becomes an office. That's what a lot of people don't realize. They think like these record labels, especially the majors, but even the indies, like there's this idea. It's like, oh, it's this magical, cool thing. It's like, that's just an office. I always tell people I work with, because it's easy, I think, for artists, and myself included, by the way. It's easy to get wrapped up in like the magic of it. And I talk to friends about this all the time. Like, I feel lucky and grateful at this point in my life to where music is fun and feels magical again. Because you just spend enough time in the business of it all, which is 99% of it. Just phone calls and meetings and stuff. And that 1% sliver is, I would say, is very magical. But that always happens in the studio. Every once in a while, you're in like a corporate boardroom meeting, and someone busts out something amazing. My old manager once told me a story about he was in a meeting. It would have been an Interscope. And apparently Jimmy Iovine was there. will.i.am was there. Dr. Dre was there. And my old manager was there. And apparently the story goes, and who knows the truth of this, but the truth is often stranger than fiction. Apparently Dr. Dre had like a new shoe, it was years ago, that he was getting ready to promote. And apparently will.i.am said, Dre, you shouldn't be selling sneakers, you should be selling speakers. And that was the genesis of Beats by Dre, as legend has it. And my old manager is a legend in his own right. So I get excited about stories like that. But that's the rare case. Most of the time you're not, if you really want to know what it's like, especially if you're a musician, and definitely a young musician, you wonder what being at a major label is like. Just imagine like 14 people around a table, and pretty much all of them are like, so what should we do for TikTok? And that's what being a signed artist is like. It used to be, what should we do for Musically? Then before that, what should we do for Vine? What should we do for like YouTube videos? And meanwhile, I'm like, I did this for 10 years. Thinking that there was some magic answer. And the magic answer they tend to have, well, it's like any successful brand or company. It's like, well, A, we're selling something. So we need a market. Let's sell people what they already love. You know, that's why it's every movie's a remake. Every TV show, it's everything's a remake. Because they'd rather like hedge their bets. It's like, well, we know there's a built-in audience, and that's the thing. So you get that's why most of them are usually, at least in kind of like the Olivia Rodrigo realm, they're usually from some high school musical, you know, some Disney show or Nickelodeon show or something like that. And look, no harm, no foul. I don't get mad at that. It's smart business. Like, hey, let's take this unknown person and throw millions of dollars at them, or take this person who the kids already love and have been media trained since they were 7 and know what a call time is, and they know how, you know, they're not freaked out by the lights and the cameras and all the stuff. It's just, it is what it is, and it's been that way since the beginning of recorded music, really. Once that system was in place, it was like, well, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So chances are, if there's a television show or maybe a popular movie starring a, 12 to 15-year-old, in 3 or 4 years, you can expect them to have a hit single. And then about, 4 years later, then they start taking their clothes off because, they're adults now. And then that doesn't really quite work out. And so they go back to let's go back to the thing. And then they clean up their act and it's youthful again. But then the audience is like, yeah, but you already took all your clothes off. And then they shave their head and eyebrows off and blame everyone. Because it's not their fault. We all know that. Nothing's their fault. That's not to say, look, I get it. There's definitely people need to make. When you're young, you don't know what's going on. I certainly didn't. And I think a lot of these performers who kind of lose it, I find that they tend to just get surrounded by yes men, yes women. And it's extraordinarily common, especially in the whole Hollywood entertainment realm. It's another thing that Idol show, I think, did really well. And for as much as people clowned on it, it's like, man, it's like the assistant who just knows everything is bad but they're their best friend. They work for their best friend. They're their assistant, and they want to help and say they know what's right and wrong. But they're a yes person. They're a yes man. And I've seen so much of that. And I told myself from a young age, like, I'm never going to be that. So when you're in the position where everyone around you is just saying yes, if someone says, hey, I don't know if that's the best idea, suddenly that starts to sound really negative, and then it becomes like, well, why are you so negative? And in my experience, it was like, I mean, look, I got fired from my own project. The thing that I spent a large chunk of my adult life exclusively just trying to make big. And at a certain point, it just became, because I'd been through the whole, public shaming thing. It's like, well, when things started getting funky, I took the opposite approach. I was like, hey, I'm just going to be totally hands off then. Like, hey, you know what? Like, I've been steering the ship for this long and got it to this point. Maybe if I take my hands off the wheel and just, hey, you seem to know what you're doing, I guess, yeah, go ahead, fire everyone. Fire the whole team, fire the management, fire the agents, ghost them. Not smart, by the way, if you're watching this and you ever get to that position. All the extremely successful executives at major labels and huge publishing companies and booking agents and modeling agencies and fashion people, I wouldn't recommend just firing everyone and ghosting them. Anyway, because we've all seen what happens when you do that. But I guess the point I'm getting at is I understand being in that headspace, how stressful it must be, where everyone's just telling you yes all the time, and if they don't, you're like, you're out. Even when they have their best interest for either you and or your career, and then suddenly you're only surrounded by people who are just leeching off of you, for either attention, fame, most of the time money, and they just milk it until there's no more, and then they on to the next, and it's been happening forever. And then then everyone's surprised when someone goes off and shaves their head and shaves their eyebrows off, and it's just a tricky situation. Sorry if this is a bummer of an episode. Kind of tired. Let's get to some listener questions here. What are your thoughts on Kraftwerk and how theirs and beyond inspiration just flows through our generation? This is from Timu from Finland / Funland. Kraftwerk, yeah, of course. There's some great footage of like their first ever live shows. It's on YouTube, and it's so insane because I can only imagine what that must have been like to be in the crowd and hearing something like Kraftwerk for the first time. They've been a huge influence. I think maybe not as big as people might think. They're one of those. I treat Kraftwerk almost the same way I do like I feel like that belongs in a museum. If it comes on in like a playlist, it's more so like interesting to me in the same way like Brian Eno is, like music for airports or like any of like the ambient works. Discrete music's one of my favorites. The whole concept of discrete music was Brian Eno, the genius that he is. He was like, oh, I wonder if audio can be a piece of furniture. It's like, wow, that's cool. And I almost feel like Kraftwerk's the same way, where like, yeah, they've got bangers. But really, it's more so about the influence, I think, that gets me. And so, yeah, I guess that's kind of how I feel about Kraftwerk. Thank you for your question. I'd love to go to Finland one day. I don't think I've been to Finland. Funland. It's pretty funny. Let's see here. We'll get to another question. Oh, I meant to. This is a question from Tom. I meant to do, I was thinking about doing a whole episode about this. What do we got, like 20 something minutes left? I might be able to get it to that in that amount of time. Tom says, one of my favorite songs of all time is one from your repertoire, Mrs. Stadler. I know you mentioned in one of the recent Titanic Talks episodes that if you had the stems, you'd want to remaster the Technology's Deadbird album. Yes. And weren't super happy with the mixing, which I get as an artist, but I do think the tone and structure of that song is really cool. Well, I appreciate that. And to a degree, I agree. It's so weird, I think, because I just didn't know what I was doing. I was wondering what the inspiration for that song and the music video and how you approach the feeling of that song with the chord progression. This is what I wanted to get into here. It's become a favorite of mine to improvise on the piano guitar when I'm thinking of ideas for my own songs. Well, Tom, that to me says that you are probably an advanced musician, because that song makes no sense whatsoever. And it's because, so at the time I was obsessed with David Bowie, still am, but oops. I was listening to Low, the album by David Bowie, quite a bit, and I guess a lot of Hunky Dory probably at that time. And I would have been listening to Rubber Soul by the Beatles obsessively around that time. And I was trying to put as many chords in a song as I could and get it to make sense in a way. I think everyone goes through this when you've been playing music long enough, where it's like, really, another 1, 4, 5, how many times G, D, E, C, like how many times are we going to hear that? And then you put substances that inebriate you to put you on another planet. And I'd convinced myself, like, oh, I need to make a song. I was listening to a lot of Montreal too, actually. And I know Kevin from Of Montreal, who's playing tonight in Nashville. He's great human being. Kevin, you're amazing. One of my heroes. That's one of the best parts, by the way, with all the highs and lows. It's when you meet one of your heroes and they're awesome. If you've never listened to Of Montreal, I truly think Kevin is just absolute genius. So I was trying to do something like that, something in between Rubber Soul, probably Hissing Fauna by Of Montreal, and like Low by David Bowie, something in that realm. And I think if there's one song in particular that I was kind of mimicking in a weird way, it probably won't make sense, but Starman by David Bowie. And it's because of the chord progression and the way the chords shouldn't work, but they do. And Mrs. Stadler in particular was just so strange to me, but I liked it. And I remember I had a 1970s Fender Stratocaster. It was white with a maple fretboard. And I was like, oh, I should use that for it. And a Squier jazz bass. And what is it like? It's like G major, B minor, B flat, A7, maybe D minor 7. Hang on, let me grab a guitar. Let's see, I honestly haven't played this in Yeah, so G, B minor, B flat major, that hits twice to A7, D minor. It's not a D minor 7. F to C minor. It's wacky. It shouldn't go there. To E flat to D7. Last time we were at D, we were in D minor. Then now we're suddenly in D7. Yeah, really bizarre. So do. So then we're in B flat. Something else that's kind of fun about that song too is that little bum bum part. Bum 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 bum. So that's just that is D minor 7. So previously it was all D minor. Then it moves to D minor 7. Why? I don't know. I just did it. Bum to G, bum bum bum. C major 7, bum 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 bum. A minor 7, bum 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 bum. And the bum bum part is just that's like your standard dee doo dee doo dee doo dee doo, and that's been in millions of songs, usually like jazz songs. And at the time, I didn't understand major 7s. I didn't understand minor 7s. I didn't understand any of them. Sometimes I would hear a song like On Technology's Dead Bird. That all revolves around G major 7. I just like heard it in a song. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool sounding. I didn't know how to implement any of this stuff. And I think that's why Mrs. Stadler has that weirdness to it. Is because when I hear it, I haven't listened to it in forever, but I'll have to listen again. I can hear a very young version of myself starting to understand how to put things together. And to me, it was always about like G, B minor, B flat, A7, D minor, F, C minor. Like, it was like a puzzle for me. It's like, how do I make a melody make sense over that? And I actually don't even really like the melody too much, but I love the I come in peace to drink your wine and find myself in photographs. Oh, you know what? Sorry, that A is it's an A7. It's not minor. Photographs. And people have asked me about that lyric, and it was quite literal. At that time, I was what I would consider a douchebag, and I was a stoner as well, and I just wanted to get stoned and drink wine and be selfish. And it's kind of weird looking back, you know. It's sad, but it's kind of a funny lyric. I come in peace to drink your wine and find myself in photographs. I just felt like that was like a really interesting way of saying like, I suck, you know, selfish, all that. We're all crossing a starting line, and it hurts my back to think of it. I want to leave this place in time is the next lyric. Dark. Tom continues to say, you mentioned in another one of the recent Titanic Talks episodes about limiting yourself to 3 to 4 chords for pop songs, but I find it difficult sometimes to not go overboard and throw a bunch of dominant 7s, major minor changes, key changes, etc. when I'm working on my music. Well, yes, I would say, if you can limit yourself to like 3 or 4 chords and then throw in a spicy chord, and it just makes it that much more like look, Mrs. Stadler, like that is like nowhere near hit territory. And at the time I wasn't even attempting to go near that. just the older you get, the more it's like, well, I wonder if I started making stuff that was more accessible, and the challenge becomes, how do I take relatively simple and easy things and make them hopefully cool and interesting. Usually that to me is with melody and definitely lyric, right? But like you're saying, it's hard for you to keep to 3 to 4 chords. Yeah, but it's cool. You can throw that dominant 7 or diminished chord in. My son's been into anytime we'll play ABBA for him, that and Queen. We've been playing a lot. And he just dances, and it's just the most adorable thing. And so usually when he's like doing a little jig, I'll pick up the guitar, and I had realized I never learned how to play Radio Gaga by Queen. I was like, oh yeah, I think there's some really cool chords in there actually, but I've never learned them. And I want to say, I heard it on my radio. Doom, doom, doom. So they've got similar-ish key, not the same key, but same chords basically. So do 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 do. I think it goes to a G sharp. Do do do. The girls and boys. To your B flat. And this is for Tom here. The chords, it's only a couple chords, right? At this point, they're kind of revolving around like the F, G minor, and B thing, right? Or B flat. But he'll throw in the G sharp as a major too. I think I could be wrong about that, but that's what it sounds like to me. Just going from memory. So you get back to that B flat, and then he adds the crazy spice. Right? Just a girl. It's that tension. And I think he goes to, I think it's something like an F over C or something like that. And then lands on the C, and you feel, the relief. And then radio. Really cool. But I guess that's kind of a long-winded way of getting to, they throw the diminished chord in, and it just, whenever I hear diminished chords, it just makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I love it so much. So those spicy chords, as I call them, when I say try sticking to 3 to 4 chords, it's like they say in country music, 3 chords and the truth. That's been really good for me, because I used to hide behind like, oh yeah, but look at all these crazy chord progressions, and it's just like, yeah, but that's not. It's interesting if you're a musician. That's a song for musicians, I think. But don't limit yourself just to those. I would say with the spicy chords, like a seasoning, sprinkle them accordingly. Not sure if you'll see this, but either way, thanks again for all the great content all over the years. Thanks, Tom. You're welcome. Thanks for watching and listening. I think I pretty much covered that kind of Mrs. Stadler thing. Yeah, interesting stuff. Pretty cool. All right. I have to get to the airport. So we're going to leave it at that. I don't want this guitar to fall, so I'm going to place it right there. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll be back next week. And if you could do me a solid, hey, tell a friend if you enjoyed this. This was another episode that was just kind of all over the place, but hey, you know what? It's been a very busy couple of weeks, and busy is good, but it also is taxing on the brain, especially when you're doing airplanes again. It always It's not my favorite thing. Anyway, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye.